Welcome to the second video for Module 1. In the first video, we learned about what photogrammetry is, the history of photogrammetry, brief history, and how the photogrammetry process works both manually and with a computer. To illustrate how photogrammetry can be used, in this video, I will share my own introduction to photogrammetry and share a recent journalism project by the Washington Post. Compared to other industries, journalism has been late to adopting photogrammetry. The process has been in use for well over 100 years for producing maps, and in more recent decades for other surveying-type purposes. So archaeology, which heavily relies on surveying techniques and practices, was an early adopter of photogrammetry for creating aerial maps and excavation site surveys. Now today, archaeology also uses the 3D reconstruction capabilities of photogrammetry to visually in 3D document and reconstruct excavated sites or replicate digitally excavated sites. I learned about photogrammetry from archaeologists, a field that has long been a pioneer of visual documentation technologies. I had just finished my bachelor's degree in journalism, and I was working with my mentor, Matt Waite, at the University of Nebraska's Drone Journalism Lab. I was looking into how other industries were using drones, and I was aware of drones being used by archaeologists because I had worked on an excavation site and I had talked to archaeologists about using drones on excavations. And I quickly realized that as a journalist, there was a lot that I could learn from archaeologists about drones and photogrammetry specifically. So, because archaeology is heavily dependent on surveying and visual documentation to record excavated sites for publishing research articles, photogrammetry serves both needs. Archaeologists can create accurately scaled maps of excavation sites and create 3D models of what they have excavated, and include those photogrammetrically produced visuals in research articles. Plus, it's a lot easier to take home a digital 3D model of a Roman temple at the end of an excavation season than it is to take home the actual temple. Journalists face a similar kind of problem or problem set when reporting on and visually documenting a story for journalistic articles or any kind of story that could or should use visual media elements. Realizing this shared need between archaeologists and journalists, this process of interdisciplinary learning and interdisciplinary collaboration became a primary source of knowledge and inspiration that I bring to my work and that I like to share with others, especially journalists. So photogrammetry is an example of this transfer of knowledge. So I applied photogrammetry techniques while working at the Antiochia ad Cragum Archaeological Research Project in August of 2014, where I did photogrammetric captures that included an ancient Roman temple and mosaic. Based on that experience, 2 months later, I went to Nairobi, Kenya to work with digital journalist Dickens Alewe and his project African Skycam. Now Dickens is now at the BBC in the UK. But we were at the time working on a story about people who find and sell discarded objects that end up in the Dandora dump site, Nairobi's main landfill and one of the largest on the African continent. Given the spatial nature of the story of the landfill and the people who sort of work and live in and around the landfill, I applied my new photogrammetry skills that I picked up from archaeologists to this journalistic project. Very much an experiment, we published the 3D model of the landfill on Sketchfab. What excited Dickens and I about this 3D model was how we were able to give the audience the agency to explore the environment, the 3D model, as they chose to do so, as opposed to the audience being just a passive consumer of the shots, like in a video piece, that show only what we want the audience to see and that we have prepared in advance. Now, to be clear, I don't mean to suggest that photogrammetric 3D models are better than video documentary stories, but they do provide storytellers with different additional opportunities for communicating a story visually. A noteworthy example of photogrammetry journalism that has been turned into a structured tour, a sort of hybrid between two-dimensional linear video and three-dimensional immersion, is the Washington Post story about the Tenement Museum in New York City, which is also a great example of how you can merge photogrammetry with text and audio all in a web page.
They call that the Old Law Tenement. We lived pretty happily, you know, and but there was a lot of disease and sicknesses.
Now, included with this module are links to other projects that have used photogrammetry, including Expedition Nebraska, a natural history 3D browser-based and mobile app-based experience made by Nebraska Public Media. The project was a collaboration between journalists and the University of Nebraska State Museum, so the project is both journalistic and educational in nature, being used by grade school teachers in the state of Nebraska. I did photogrammetry capture of museum specimens that were used in the experience. In addition to viewing the project, you can also listen to a short presentation and Q&A that I did with Chad Davis, the Chief Innovation Officer from Nebraska Public Media and the Executive Producer and Creative Director of Expedition Nebraska. So, to recap this video and Module 1, we've briefly explored the origins of photogrammetry and how the process works, as well as interdisciplinary applications of the process, including how I learned about and began using photogrammetry with archaeologists, and looked at an example of how photogrammetry has been applied in the context of journalism. In the next module, we will look more closely at the practicalities around using photogrammetry as a part of your storytelling and journalism process.